Whoa, David and Bjorn.
Disembodied voice of Brian, what's going on?
Here we start starting the meeting at like 2 minutes before the hour, and that'll start shifting the average back, and people will start showing up on time for a change.
Yep. Oh, looks like Microsoft is flooding this meeting.
Looks like the consensus here, the quorum is here. Tianan, I think you had the first one on the list. I know you threw my name on it, but did you want to take it?
Sure. I put this on the list just to hope to get more eyes on it faster, so we can resolve it faster. The short version is Scratch is confusing because Scratch is already a thing in the container ecosystem, so it wasn't the best name choice. And so while we can still fix that, it seems prudent to fix that.
One of these things we caught when people started looking at using it, and they all started implementing something like Scratch, but wasn't what we were trying to make a Scratch, but was something close to like the artifact version of a Scratch, which was, if they didn't need layers after that, it would have made sense. But once they started saying, okay, we're going to have Scratch as a starting point, and then we started adding layers on top of it, it's like, well, now you're not Scratch anymore.
Perfect, Aaron.
Yeah, all the name choices coming out in the chat. Empty.json, null, nil, object. Yeah, that would make some friends. I went for filler, which seems to be equally disliked. I think everybody wants to bike shed this one a little bit and dislike everything that's out there. See, the problem with empty plus JSON, John, is that is not a valid IANA media type.
It is if it's in our vendor tree.
It needs to have like application / or something like that.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to type that whole thing out. I don't get paid for
I
this.
think everyone's assuming that.
Yeah, it's the assumptions.
I don't love artifact because it suggests that the OCI definition of an artifact is an empty object, which is slightly amusing.
I'm ready for it.
We're running out of nouns.
I think empty object. Like, let's just have the media type literally describe exactly what it is. Empty object JSON.
I think object's redundant with JSON because JSON is object in there, but I also don't care that much.
An empty JSON could also be a string, number, bool, etc.
But not if it's in the artifact or the OCI vendor tree. We very specifically defined it to be open bracket, close bracket.
Part of the challenge I ran
fair.
into when I was doing this, I was just doing a quick find and replace and everything. It says the Scratch and just said rename it to empty. And so I was going through there doing that, and I started reading all the sentences as they came out with after I did that. And I was like, none of this stuff makes any sense anymore. So we're talking about if you have to push an empty descriptor, use the empty thing. And it was just like we're saying it multiple times everywhere. And so that was the big motivation for me to pick a different word.
I think empty is fine. but just empty.json, no application slash.
Anybody have any issue with empty plus JSON?
It was, for me, the challenge is just all the wording gets funny when I try to change the PR for that. We have empty in there all over the place already for talking about this in general, but not talking about the actual field.
And then you could use the word filler to differentiate from empty, but then when you go to say, oh, but what is the media type for the filler? Oh, it's empty. Like that, that doesn't really work.
Yeah, so I was just using filler for the media type to say, hey, this is a filler object because it is something. There is something there, but it's just filler data. We're just trying to put this in there so that there is a descriptor so that we're passing it around. Technically, I think we have enough to approve it as is. We've got 2 approves on it already, so I could merge it. But I figured I would wait until the group said, oh, heck no, we don't want to merge it as is. Everybody's going to hate it or not.
I don't know if you saw Tianan's comment in chat. I think using empty JSON and prose to disambiguate it from the other places where we use empty might make it look a little better.
I'm hearing more people kind of like lean towards empty. Not too many fans for fillers. So should we go ahead and just for the media type call it empty plus JSON?
I can do that. That's what the consensus is. It's going to be interesting seeing how the wording comes out with that, but I'll do a find replace on it again.
Sorry, Brandon.
It's, for me, I'm not worried about the effort of doing it. I'm worried about people reading this later on and saying your words make no sense to me. And why did you write that?
I think in the media type, and I'm hoping it goes away, honestly speaking.
Well, I mean, for example, the wording says to set an effectively null or empty config and maintain the portability, see the guidance for yada, yada. And so it's going to be a empty descriptor or something. And so someone's going to say, well, it's already an empty config and you're saying how to do an empty descriptor, and is the empty descriptor supposed to have data in there? Or are you just pointing me to something that just has a couple of brackets? And we said it's a couple of brackets already. So does that mean the descriptor itself is a couple of brackets, or is that the data that the descriptor points to? It's easy for people to say they get confused and do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess it's been less confusing because the SHA is all that I've actually cared about. So the media type is kind of immaterial, is what I thought. But it seems like people are reading into what the content media type is also. But as long as we agree that the digest doesn't change and the content is this, and the media type is just a string, right?
Yeah, but is there a digest on an empty descriptor?
I think, Brandon, what I said earlier is Tianan has some comments in the chat to suggest prose. So instead of replacing it Scratch with empty, replacing it with empty JSON, and that the empty JSON descriptor does sort of make sense to me. The descriptor of a blob that's empty JSON.
All right. I'll do another find replace. Next up on the list here, artifact type. I'm guessing, is that you, Aaron?
Yeah. All I did is remove the miscopied line, I think, on this PR from the previous one, but just add the artifact type field to the image index. So that APIs that list it for any reason, so like refers API or any others, it would include the artifact type in the future. Just future proofing image index. I've also share my screen, added a description of the sort of use case here. That a top level package stored as an image index could refer to a set of image manifests where each of those would be an individual artifact, and a client implementation would sort of in the same way as image index today with containers would not intend to download all of the artifacts. It would choose, you would use the index to determine which set of artifacts from the manifest list that it needs to continue its operation.
The crickets are getting very noisy. I'm holding my own comment just because I don't have a need for this myself, but I'm not throwing any objections on it. Yes, it might be good to see some implementations of it out there, but not a big deal either way for me. Did you have the other one as well, Aaron? 10:30. You're on.
I don't recall where we left off. Yeah, thank you. I don't recall where we left off. I think, Brandon, you had sort of thought maybe it does belong in image spec and not in distribution spec. So I'm not sure where we wanted to go with 1030.
I feel like from the last time, part of me still wants to hear from registry operators just to make sure, but yeah, the main idea looking through this one, I still think it belongs over here though. The stuff we're changing is over here, even though it's enforced on the registry side, all the phrasing and verbiage around this stuff is over in image specs. So I don't see how you would easily put it over in distribution spec and not get things very intertwined between the two. It already kind of is. This could end up being a really quick meeting if we got nothing but crickets today.
We have nothing else, then
Yeah,
I have no more comments on 1030.
I have been going through some of the conformance stuff, so we're trying to get some of that going here soon, hopefully. And otherwise, David, I see you got your hand up there, so go ahead and jump in.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Bryn. So I just wanted to ask a quick question. What is the take on artifact type? So I work in the WASM space, and we have been working on different ways to structure WebAssembly modules and store them in registries. And we want to make sure that we do it the right way. I have been a little bit confused on whether or not to use the artifact type, as it seems it's optional, right? Why would we or why would we not want to use the artifact type?
The main reason we added the artifact type was to support the use case where someone didn't have their own config media type. And the challenge we had was to say you are packaging an XML formatted SBOM. You don't have a config media type for the XML formatted SBOM. If you put the double curly brackets in the config and you set the media type to be XML on the config media type and put a double curly bracket in there, you're technically against the spec because the content of the blob doesn't match the media type on the blob. And so for people that had a scenario where they're pushing an artifact, it was just one layer out there, maybe even 0 layers. We wanted a way to be able to set the artifact type without setting it on that config media type.
That makes so much more sense. Thank you so much for explaining that.
Yeah, it was strictly because the content of the blob had to match the media type on the blob. And when you're setting that and your only content was the layer down below, your config media type didn't have anything in it. And so there are registries out there that are very picky on that. They want to parse that config field and they want to parse that blob and try to pull data out there to bring it up to the user's visibility there. And when they start parsing stuff that's not JSON, they get picky. And so that's why we did the double curly bracket. But yeah, if you've got WASM today, I think what I've seen coming from that side already, which is that you've got a config media type already now, that you're pushing something that looks like our config descriptor already that we've got today, the content from the config JSON. Maybe you want to change it a little bit to use WASM specific stuff. We're cool with that. You've got a different media type on there already, so it's indicating this WASM. So once you change that media type, it's yours to set whatever you want the content in there to be. And then it's just up to you and Containerd and everybody else is trying to do the runtime on this to agree on what that content should look like at that point. Wait, that's the easy answer for the day. I wish all the questions were that easy. Usually we're bike shedding too much over here, so to have someone ask the easy ones, those are fun. Yeah, so otherwise on my agenda is just try to get some of these conformance stuff knocked out. And so it's getting there. We've got a few of them. I think I've got a few PRs to review again. I've got some comments on a few of them as well. So the sooner we can get that done, the better. And then sort out a couple of these that Aaron was bringing up today. So otherwise with that, any other requests before I give back people 40 minutes of their day? Going once, going twice. All right. Have a great rest of the week. And yeah, if you got the time, jump in there and start reviewing some PRs.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.